Falco, born June 1, 1953, Brooklyn, New York, United States, is an American serial killer that murdered 6 people in New York City between 1976 and 1977. His crimes plunged the city into a panic and unleashed one of the largest manhunts in New York history. Davy Berkowitz was a difficult and occasionally violent child. His erratic behavior, which began after the death of his adoptive mother in 1967, intensified when his adoptive father remarried in 1971 and moved to Florida without him. In 1971, Berkowitz joined the Army, and he became an established sniper before he was honorably discharged from the service in 1974. According to Berkowitz's diary, he committed over 1,500 arson fires in New York City in the mid-1970s. Claiming he was driven by demons, Berkowitz attempted to murder a woman in December 1975, however she survived several stab wounds. Berkowitz then murdered a woman in July 1976, and over the next year he attacked several couples, for which Berkowitz eventually would claim 5 more victims. During his killing spree, David Berkowitz sent letters to the New York newspapers, signing them Son of Sam, which was reference to a demon he believed lived inside the black lab retriever owned by his neighbor Samuel Carr. On August 10, 1977, police searched Dave Berkowitz's car. Inside the car the police found a rifle, a duffel bag filled with ammunition, maps of the crime scenes, and an unsent Son of Sam letter addressed to Sergeant Dowd of the Omega Task Force. Police decided to wait for David Berkowitz to leave his apartment, hopefully with enough time to obtain a warrant, since they had searched his car without any search warrant. The warrant never arrived, however police surrounded Berkowitz when he left his apartment, holding a .44 caliber Bulldog revolver in a paper bag. When Dave Berkowitz was arrested, he allegedly told police, "Well, you got me now. Why did it take you such a long time?" David Berkowitz was arrested on August 10, 1977, 11 days after his last murder. His capture was the result of careful police work, which involved sorting through a confusing maze of reports of suspicious persons. Ultimately, David Berkowitz was identified as the most likely suspect, a theory that was confirmed when his car was found to have received a parking ticket near the scene of one of the shootings. Dave Berkowitz soon confessed, and on May 8, 1978, he pleaded guilty. Davy Berkowitz was sentenced to 25 years in prison for each murder, served in New York's Supermax prison Attica Correctional Facility. In February 1979, Dave Berkowitz held a press conference stating that his claims about demonic possession were a hoax. Berkowitz stated to a court-appointed psychiatrist that he was lashing out in anger against a world that he felt had rejected him. He felt that he had been particularly rejected by women, which could be one of the reasons that he specifically targeted attractive young girls. In 1990, David the Son of Sam Berkowitz was moved to Sullivan Correctional Facility, where he remains today.
Now you said that you believe that God has forgiven you.
Yes.
Do you still keep in touch with your dad?
Yes.
Without getting too personal, how's he doing?
He's doing fine. But he asked me not to talk about it.
I understand, that's what I said.
Safeguard his privacy and privacy of his family.
Okay. In terms of the correspondence you carry on with different people and different ministry people and so on and so forth, what's your mail flow like around here? And I don't mean recently.
It's been a lot. I don't make a big deal of it. I just consider it as part of my life now, part of it, in a sense, part of my ministry. I get letters from people from all walks of life. Most people are sincere. Some are having, very serious problems, and for whatever reasons, God, I believe, leads them to me, and I'm able to minister to them and encourage them, share Christian gospel with them, even some teenagers, and so it's been good.
It's sort of ironic, isn't it? I mean, you're doing all this stuff through the mail these days. You keep the post office busy. What's that, a little nod of loyalty to your old employer? Once a postman, always a postman? Does this all this work that you're doing now, do you feel that this is helping you make up for some of the bad stuff that you were involved in? Do you feel like you're paying back a little bit?
Yeah, these things, first of all, I want to be a good Christian because I want to please the Lord, but it's my way of saying that I'm sorry for the things that happened in the past, and I'm sorry for being that bad person and being a fool, and this is my way of, if I could reach out to some young person and through the videos and so forth that are going all over the place in schools and churches, youth facilities, prisons, I know that if I reach some of them with that warning that you don't want to come to prison, that you don't want to throw your life away, that you could have a better life through Jesus Christ, if somehow I could touch some of them and get them to change their direction, then it would have served a purpose. I really believe with all my heart that the message that I'm sharing today through the written pamphlets or through the videos have actually saved a lot of lives, and there's ministers to verify that, where their kids or whatever who've heard that message and have, instead of going in the path that they were going, which may have led eventually to a graveyard, an early grave, they've given their life to Christ instead, and they're better people today because of it. And so I'm thankful for that. That's truly a blessing. And that's not me doing that. I believe it's God. God works through people, ordinary people.
Let me ask you something. Prison, of course, is for punishment, but it's for something else too. Rehabilitation. Is that correct? The purpose of prison, I mean, people get sent to prison for punishment, but isn't it a fact that prison systems also like to rehabilitate people if they can?
I guess you could say that, yeah. Certainly, they want someone to learn their lesson where they don't come back to a place like this and don't throw their life away and hurt some other lives and damage other people. You would hope that someone would come to prison and, if they do get out, they would learn their lesson. But I feel that for what I see more than that is prison is a place of reflection and self-examination where a man is forced to come to terms with himself. You take a guy that's 30 years old, 40 years old, maybe he's got a couple of kids out there, maybe a wife, maybe he's with her, maybe he's not, but here's a guy that's an adult and he's in prison doing time, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years or more. There has to, it's like a point of reality where you got to face yourself and say, "Man, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing? Where am I going? What's my goal? What's my direction?" And I think that being in prison now 22 years, I've seen a lot of men come to terms with that, where they realize that they, at some certain point, they realized that they were doing like traveling a dead end, traveling a road to destruction. And that's where, like in here, the chapel has been such a blessing, where we have a chaplain that ministers to the men, and we have a place where guys go for nurturing and encouragement.
To you, speaking of punishment, I mean, the death penalty wasn't in effect in New York when all of the 44 incidents went down. If you even for your role in it, how would you have felt if the death penalty was still around then, or was around then? Did you care at that point?
There was a time when I had given up hope. I feel so far under satanic power and satanic control that I didn't care. I was more like a robot than a person. There was a time in my life when I feel that I was just utterly under a powerful influence that was destructive, and I didn't care it was a point where I didn't care if I lived or died.
How did these people get such control over you?
It was a process. It took time. It was like little by little. I mean, I'm telling you, I didn't know it was going to come this way. I mean, when I got out of the service, I wanted to make a life for myself. My dad was moving to Florida. Most of my friends had all gone or all changed directions in their life, and I just wanted to make a life for myself. I got an apartment. I had saved up, and when I was in the service, enough money to buy a used car, to rent an apartment. I got a job as a security guard. I enrolled in Bronx Community College. I wanted to have a future, you know, and I don't know, everything got turned upside down. I had good goals, and I just fell into under some kind of powerful influence. I mean,
you were a middle class guy. Middle class. Family's middle class, you were middle class. Now, based on what I understand, there were some people involved in this circle, if you will. There were some money people.
Yeah.
There were some influential people, high rollers. So you saw some of the high life, so to speak, right? I mean, do you think that had some of it too? You say, wow, these rich people are out doing this, so it can't be all that bad?
I don't know. I just kind of fell into the flow of things, and I never really looked at it or analyzed that of their lifestyle.
Yeah, but you
Just
would
accepted it. I didn't really want that. See, to me, I was always content money or that kind of thing never really impressed me. I was just content to maybe have a job, raise a family, live in the suburbs one day. That was my goals in life. Wasn't to be a millionaire or ride around in a big car. And those material things just never really impressed me. There were people that had that, and I just didn't think one way or the other.
Okay, that's what I was getting at, because if I recall correctly, you were at parties in the Hamptons and in Greenwich, Connecticut, and some big places in Manhattan and Westchester County, and you saw some of these people with some bucks. I mean, I was trying to find out if that was part of the thing that helped entice you into this, saying, wow, these people are into this and look at all they got.
No, I was just mainly a tag-along guy and just didn't really get impressed with that.
All right. This is a very valid issue. This we've talked about in the past, and this is that there was a great deal made of the fact that in around Mother's Day of 1975, you finally found your natural mother.
Yes.
And there was one psychiatrist in particular who would later say that this is what put Berkowitz over the edge. He was so filled with rage because he had met his natural mother and she was a disappointment, etc., etc. Would you respond to that?
Yeah, I did find my natural mother. It was something that I just had in my heart to do. I had come across some literature from the Adoptees Liberty movement, and this was back in early 75 or somewhere around 74. And I just suddenly had this urge to go see if I can possibly find my natural. Parents, because I was always curious. It was always like a driving thing. And to make a long story short, I did meet, as you said, it was in 75. I even lost track of the time. I did meet my natural mother, and she turned out to be a very nice person. And we got along really good, typical Jewish mother. And I found out I had a half sister, and we really kind of hit it off pretty good. I started to go over to their house all the time. I was out in where my sister lived in Queens. She's long since moved away. My mom lived out in Brooklyn just briefly, and then moved to Long Island, to Long Beach. And I was over at her house a number of times. We had a fine relationship, and she used to cook meals, and it was totally false that I had any rage or animosity towards her. I feel that at that time with that psychologist, he was mainly, and this is not a criticism, but just looking back, he was mainly interested in fitting me into these different molds that he already had. As a Freudian psychologist, he had these certain molds you have to go into. It always reverts back to the childhood, the mother, a bad relationship, but that was completely false.
Which brings something to mind. Somebody, not you, told me a long time ago that you had actually read a book called The Murdering Mind to be familiar with some of the psychology of this kind of stuff so that you could give the right answers to shrinks?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
So are you saying you were just parroting back to them what you thought they wanted to hear?
Yeah. But there was a whole reason for that too. It's such a long story. It was that McGraw-Hill thing with Mr. Klausner and all the stuff that resulted from that. I had felt really betrayed by the attorneys, and it's no big deal. At that time, I was in a really depressed frame of mind, just coming into prison and, just facing everything. It was just so overwhelming. And then when I found out that the attorneys that represented me had been working out a deal to write a book with this guy, and eventually a book was published by McGraw-Hill, which it didn't do well. It kind of bombed. But anyway, at that time when I found out that was coming out, I contacted Mr. Abrahamson, Dr. Abrahamson, and kind of pretty much told him what he wanted to hear, and that was foolish. I mean, at the time, I was just handling everything the wrong way. And at that time, I was, depressed and suicidal in prison, and, I just...
At that time, were you still involved in the occult?
I used to practice in the very beginning, like rituals in my cell and everything. It was stupid.
Yeah, we're talking about that, not now.
Yeah, I know,
I'm
but it was just,
that.
it was, yeah.
So, when you first came to prison and for a period of time, you were actually doing your own private rituals in your cell?
Briefly, yeah. And, I was locked into a certain way of thinking. It's just impossible to explain, and I really hesitate to talk about it because sometimes it's just so taken out of context and misunderstood. But I was just into a type of thinking which I believe that later on in life Christ had completely set me free from. And if it wasn't for my faith in Christ, if it wasn't for that other inmate reaching out to me one day and beginning to share his faith with me and bring me along that path, I probably would be just a miserable, lonely individual now, just caught up in my own world.
Or in the ground.
Or in the, I believe God spared my life. I don't know why. There's so many times when I'm talking to the Lord when I say my prayers, say, why, God? Why did you spare my life? And He just keeps reassuring me that He loves me and that things are going to be okay.
Now, isn't it so that a substantial number of people whom you were associated with on the streets back in 76 and 77 are in the ground?
That's what I've heard. I don't know how accurate all that is. I've heard, that the Carr brothers and so forth have lost their lives shortly after I was arrested. What exactly transpired, I don't know.
Well,
there's been a lot.
Young girls like Dawn Coons and Frank Signorelli died in jail, and Joe Carrozza, who had the yacht in the Rochelle, and so on and so forth. I mean, there's a laundry list of people who died violently, either murder, accidents, overdoses, suicides.
That's what happens when, this is why I try so fervently to reach people with the gospel, because I know what Satan can do to a person. Satan can utterly destroy a human life, and just as the Bible says that Satan comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but that Christ comes to give an abundant life. And if people dabble in things, if they follow that path that I was on, eventually they can end up destroying themselves, because there are powers behind the scenes. I know many people say, oh, bah humbug, I don't believe that stuff. Well, it's true whether people believe it or not. It's reality. There are powers, entities that people get involved with that could twist a person's mind and ultimately destroy that person's life.
Do you remember Jimmy Kahn? Not the actor.
Yes.
The one who lived in your building.
Yeah.
After you got arrested, Kahn went up to his job trying to get a gun because he said people were now after him. Now, Kahn was involved in this case, at least in terms of Untermeyer Park, not at crime scenes. And he drove that yellow VW once in a while. Well, Kahn is the latest one. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Kahn committed suicide around last Thanksgiving. So, for the record, it's up to, that we know of, about 21 people who were associates of yours in one way or another on the wrong side of this case have died since your arrest, and only one of them, whose name we know, Mr. D, died of natural causes, and he was elderly. All the others were young and unnatural causes. Does that say anything to you about all this?
Yeah, that the devil means business. It doesn't play. That's what I've been sharing in my testimony time and time again, that the devil does not play. And person follows him or serves him, they're throwing their life away. They don't know what they're getting into. What could start out as dabbling could ultimately lead to total possession. I've seen it in the past. I know what happened to me. And I hesitate to share these things in the public because it just sounds so unbelievable. People really can't accept that. They don't really understand, or my words get twisted. It's been a real uphill battle to even share. But mainly today, I just see that my calling in life, what I feel is my calling, is to share the good news of Jesus Christ and to reach as many with that message of hope as possible. I mean, even in other countries today, you know, the videos are going into the Philippines, into Russia, they're translated in different languages, Romania. And I mean, I have to look at that and say, well, I can't do anything about the past. I made wrong choices. I did foolish things. I threw my life away. I hurt other people and destroyed their lives, and I'm sorry for that. I can't change the past anymore. If I only knew what I was getting into at the beginning, as I said, I would have just ran away. But
rejoin the army. Yeah. That would have, even to that.
As I said, when I left the service, I was all ready to begin a new life. I had bought an expensive stereo system, a Sansui stereo system overseas, where the rates were cheap. I had it shipped to the United States. I got my own apartment, my own car. I saved up money when I was in the service. I enrolled in the Bronx Community College. I got a part-time job. I was going to school under the GI Bill. I thought I had a future, you know, and then everything just flipped around. I didn't think I'd ever end up in a place like this.
Oh, it's the Catskills. Well, the Jewish comedians come there. Why do you think? Go ahead.
In terms of, you said you had a dream, to have the typical, somebody growing up in the 50s, the wife, the kids, the suburbs. I was wondering if more could ask you, have you had any kind of a romantic relationship with anyone, maybe somebody whose heart was drawn to you and they began writing to you? I know that happens.
That's an interesting human interest kind of question.
Mm-hmm.
Some of, let's say, female friends over the years, without names, just in general, who you've corresponded with, you've developed some female friends, is that correct?
Well, I wouldn't say like that, like really romantic. I do have, but this is off the record, I think. I do have, because I want to protect privacy. I learned to, this is my life. This is going to be the rest of my life. But it's hard to describe it. It doesn't bother me anymore because God has given me peace about it, and I can accept, this is kind of where I am, where I'll be.
People get married even with life, even with consecutive life.
Yeah, they do.
Eric Menendez got married behind bars. So no marriage plans at all.
No marriage plans.
At least not at the moment.
No.
If I can, let me see if I can get this idea right that Lisa talked about before. It's the idea that there are as many, the authorities say, that there are as many as perhaps 50 serial killers going around America at one time. And I mean, from the point of view of somebody who had been involved in something like that, granted not by yourself, I mean, is there something that the authorities should do or people should be on the lookout for as a way to help identify this kind of thing?
I'm not really an expert on that. those people come from all walks of life. There's a lot of, see, the way I look at it from the eyes of a person like who's like a minister today. I see that there's just a lot of hurting people out there, a lot of confused, lonely, troubled people, and a lot of angry people, a lot of tormented people. And that's why, you know, as a Christian, I try to reach as many as I can, because I believe with all my heart that it's a personal relationship with God that can give a person hope, that can give a person meaning in life. I don't know what causes that kind of behavior. I really don't know it, understand it at all.
So you're not auditioning for the job as host of America's Most Wanted?
No.
No, but I mean, it's more the concept in terms of how should a person know if there's someone who needs help so badly, who's so troubled that they're going to cross that line and commit murder?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone to look out for so that maybe they could get someone to help them?
Family members, friends.
Wow, that's...
Is that something you would know from ministering to people, because you've seen the people who need the help so badly? What
Yeah.
are those symptoms?
Take your time.
And you were one of them. You could reach into your own pastor.
Yeah.
Any other person that you've met in this environment, when I'm sure there were plenty.
Well, I think that what people need is closeness. In society today, people are so far apart, and even in families, so many families are broken homes. And I don't mean just the broken homes in the sense that maybe dad's in prison or mom and dad are separated or something like that. But sometimes the family could be in, like, all under the same roof, mom and dad and the kids, and yet the home can still be broken because people are not communicating. There's no real bonding. There's no deeper love. And sometimes even in one's own home, there could be strangers. I think it's so important for people to communicate and to spend time with one another in a family unit as much as possible. I know that, for example, in the incident in Columbine, those kids had parents, and they were from homes that on all purposes seemed to be stable and so forth. And yet, some ways you look at that, and yet there was, within the home, there was a broken relationship. And it seemed like those parents really didn't have an understanding of how far into, let's say, just use the word evil, those kids had fallen. And the parents seem to be, from what I understand, just kind of oblivious to that. My heart goes out to them, because I'm sure they must be struggling with that very much, asking themselves a lot of questions, why? But I can see that there's a need for people to be closer and to know one another better.
So what signs and what?
We still think the temporal.
Oh, what are you talking about, for Pete's sake? Did you see her or not? She's acting like she's freaking out of her mind, psychotic, like a split personality or...
Culture. We call it somnambuliform possession.
We're with David Berkowitz, the convicted son of Sam killer, who is spending, you've been here how long in this prison?
About 12 years.
Attica before that, right?
Clinton before that.
And then Attica.
And then Attica. It's been 22 years altogether.
Do you ever adjust to the, I mean, you have to, you have no choice, but how do you adjust to this kind of, for want of a better term, bleak living?
Larry, prison is not easy, but over the years, God has given me a lot of strength and a lot of hope to make it and to endure and to survive. He's done some miracles in my life, and he's brought me through a lot of things that maybe others would not have survived.
If not for that, you don't think you'd be sitting here?
No.
Of course, you're going to be here the rest of your life, right?
That's right. I'm doing consecutive life sentences totaling more than 300 years.
You have parole eligibility, but that's very doubtful, right?
As I understand it, actually I have my parole papers here, really the commitment papers, and as you can see, I'm doing consecutive sentences which run right after the other, so one life sentence overlaps the other, and really what that means is basically it's translated as life without parole.
How does it What do you do with something like that?
Larry, believe it or not, I've learned to just be content and accept the fact. There are things that happened in the past that I deeply regret with all my heart, but I know that I can't change those things. And I have to accept the punishment that was meted out to me, and God has just given me the strength to endure from day to day.
Well, let's discuss it all.
Okay.
What kind of living condition do you have there? Do you have a roommate? Do you have a cellmate? What do you live like?
Oh, I have my own cell. Some of the inmates are double bunk, which is something they started several years ago, but most of the men here have their own cell.
And this is maximum security, right?
Yes, this is maximum security.
How many hours a day can you go out of the cell?
Well, because I work and go to chapel and so forth, I can spend a good portion of my day outside of the cell.
New York State's pretty liberal, right? You could have visitors every day if they wanted to come see you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Unlimited phone calls?
Well, in certain time restrictions, but you can make a lot of phone calls.
Television?
They have televisions in the day room, but I'm not a TV watcher.
You don't watch?
No.
What do you have in your cell? How big is the cell?
I guess a little bigger than an average-sized bathroom in a home. And there's a bunk, little table, and a little locker, and so forth. I have my typewriter, my books, and so forth.
How about eating? Do you eat in a group?
Eat in the day room area. There's a day room area. All the guys in the cell block eat.
How do they treat you generally?
Oh, I get along with the guys, thank God, pretty good. Over the years, as I said, God has worked miracles where men have pretty much accepted me, and I'm no different than anybody else. I'm a member of the general population, and I come and go like everyone else, no special treatment. And for that, I'm thankful.
How's the supervisor here? How are the guards? How are you treated by the prison officialdom?
Well, I go by the rules, so I don't have any problems.
Would you say you're a good prisoner?
I go by the rules, yeah.
What kind of work do you do?
I work in the mental health unit. It's called Intermediate Care Program, and I'm there as like a peer counselor for the men that have emotional problems. Every morning, Monday through Friday, I go over there to work with those guys. And that's really a challenge, and I enjoy doing that very much.
You do counseling?
In a sense, yeah. It's in an unofficial capacity. It's I'm kind of like a combination chaplain, counselor, guidance counselor, and just a friend to those guys.
Is this garb that you're wearing, is that official prison garb?
Yes,
you
it is.
expect to see stripes and a number that doesn't exist? Huh?
No, not anymore. It's just green clothing, though, drab green, but this is part of the prison uniform.
Can you tell us what happened to your neck? It's so obvious. That's a nasty scar.
Yeah, in 1979, another inmate, I guess to make a name for himself, tried to take my life.
Why are you barking at the suit? You are such a weird dog.
And he snuck in, I wasn't looking, with a razor and opened up the whole side of my neck. And it was a miracle that I survived. When I went down to the prison infirmary, I walked down there on my own, and I didn't really lose much blood. So I could just walk down there, and they sewed me up. And, the doctor there said, it's a miracle you survived.
You walked down with that?
Yeah, right, yeah. It was a miracle. And after that, I was fine. And just went back to my unit, and like nothing happened. And I believe at that time, God had protected my life.
What did they do to the guy?
Nothing, because I didn't.
You didn't press any
No,
charges?
I didn't press any charges.
Did you get to see him after that?
Well, he was in a different place, so they moved him on. But I didn't, he didn't get in any trouble. And it was a nightmare I'd like to forget, the years at Attica, going through those struggles.
Attica was the worst?
Right.
Much worse than here?
Yeah, it was, sure.
Didn't you try once to take your own life?
Yeah, there were several times that at the beginning, when I first came to prison, I was very suicidal. And I saw no hope in living. I was disgusted with my life. I was angry at a lot of people. I felt betrayed, confused, and I saw no hope. So there were some times when I did try to commit suicide.
Isn't that almost impossible to do in prison, though?
No, I've known a number of men who
You had a
over the years,
plan?
I wouldn't say I had a plan. I just felt driven. There was just so much in me that was driving me to destroy myself at the time. But again, God had his hand on my life and said, you're not, David, you're not going to die. You're not going to ruin your life anymore. And
There's lots to talk about with David Berkowitz, and we'll continue on this edition of Larry King Live right after this.
Past year, the people of this city had seen many faces of the .44 caliber killer in a series of police composite sketches. Not one of his victims saw the son of Sam smile. But as David Berkowitz was led into police headquarters early this morning, he broke into a macabre grin. For everyone else in police headquarters, there was good reason for good cheer. The police were convinced they had finally bagged the son of Sam. The infamous .44 caliber Bulldog revolver found in his car was rushed to ballistics. Within hours, the experts were sure it was the same weapon used to kill Stacy Moskowitz.
We're back at the Sullivan Correctional Facility in Fallsburg, New York. I'm Larry King with David Berkowitz. You confessed to these crimes, right? So there was never a trial?
Right, I just wanted to end it, and I was just so distraught. I just confessed and pled guilty and got it over with, and just wanted to get out of that environment.
I'm not going to dwell on it, but let's cover some of those bases. I want to get into the film and your life now. But for people watching, especially younger people who don't know, why? First, what was it like to kill someone? First time you killed someone. First time you killed someone. We all wonder about something like that. What was it like?
Larry, I don't dwell on that much, and I don't dwell on it at all. It was a horrible thing. It was a horrible thing.
You hated it while you did it?
Yeah, I felt that, looking back, I mean, I know that God has healed so much in my life and healed those memories and everything, and I'd do anything if I can go back and change it all and have prevented it from happening.
Has he healed you enough to look at it dispassionately?
Yeah, but it's still very painful. And it was a horrible...
why you were killing? I mean, we've heard about your statements, but people who may not know this case, you feel you were sort of satanically involved?
Yes, I was. It was the worst mistake of my life. A whole series of events happened that just seemed to be by fate. And...
when you say mistake, what mistake did you make? Before the killing?
Getting involved in things. I was lonely. I was looking for companionship. I wanted to... I got out of the service. I did 3 years in the Army. I was honorably discharged, and I wanted to start a life. I enrolled in community college. And
living where?
In the Bronx. I got my own apartment. I had saved up some money from when I was in the service, and I just wanted to start my life, coming out. And friends had moved away, and I didn't know anyone. And,
how old were you?
21 at the time. And...
so you went to school? Did you have a life? I mean, were you dating girls? Did you work?
I was dating a little bit here and there, just very, very casually. Wouldn't really call it even a date, but you know, but the hours I had, I was going to school in the Bronx full time. I was working at night as a security guard at the time. I had no real social life, you know.
And then you got mixed up with some people?
Yeah, I got involved, and it was a very long process, and I look back with regret. And,
to a young person that might be watching, who might be affected by, is this kind of a cultish group, or?
I guess you can say that.
What mistake did you make? What didn't you see that you should have seen?
Danger.
Was this a group of people?
Yeah. I was adventurous. I was just an arrogant person. I was lonely. I just always felt, it's such a long story. It goes back really to childhood and the struggles I had as a child, many psychological problems growing up.
Did you know something was wrong with you? I mean, like when you were in the Army, did you ever have times when you say, I don't know what it is, I'm out of touch with reality, or
yeah,
not in sync with other people?
Yeah, right, that happened. It happened a lot. When I was growing up, I was so disruptive in school and had so many emotional problems, behavioral problems, that the school officials told my parents, you know, you're going to have to keep David in school, you're going to have to take him to a child psychologist. They made some kind of arrangements for me to go, and I went for about 2 years, once a week to Manhattan with my mom. She would take me there to just try to deal with me, deal with the situations. I had very bad. I had bouts of depression when I was a child. I was very suicidal.
But you were getting help too, right?
Well,
or not?
They tried to help me, but Larry, that didn't work. It was like a waste of time.
Should you have been confined? Would it have been helped had you gone to some sort of institution early?
No. It wasn't like that. I could still function. I mean,
No, as people working around you, let's say a guy who was another security guard would have no knowledge of this, of what was going on inside your head.
No.
What finally spun it off?
There was a lot of pressures and a lot of decisions and a lot of bad choices. I felt that at this time I had, regrettably, I mean, I look back at it with just regret. At this time, I had made a pact with the devil. I had allowed this satanic thing to control me, and I felt these paranormal powers. I know that sounds so hard to understand, you know, but
Explain it to me.
that's what was happening, and I felt somehow invincible. I felt that I had this power, and I was unknown to me. I was slowly being led down a path of destruction.
Did it give you a high? In other words, what was the plus for you? There has to be a plus. What did you get out of it?
Nothing.
So you were not happy when you were doing this?
No. I just felt like a brainwashed robot.
Really?
Yeah.
What is that like?
I just felt I had no mind. I felt something else was controlling me.
And you took it through a dog?
No, that was
What was that?
That was just, I'd rather not talk about that. That was just a bunch
No, I'm not going to pressure you, but there were pressures on you.
Yeah, sure, there were
You were
pressures.
hearing from sources outside of yourself.
Not in that psychological way, but it was a satanic thing. It was,
Why do you think it took you to take a life of someone? Why do you think that it took? I mean, there are a lot of people in cults and a lot of people who do weird things. Why did you do what you did, do you think?
at the time, I was misled. I thought that what I was supposed to do. It was
You
the
thought what you were doing
stupidest.
was right?
It was not right, but that somehow this had some kind of plan.
Compulsion.
No, it wasn't that. It was just more complicated than that.
All right, what was it like to read about yourself In other words, there is a killer loose in the city.
I didn't relate to that.
Didn't?
No.
Didn't buy the papers every morning?
I saw them, but it was like something else.
Didn't say that's me?
No, it didn't, no.
So there was no plan on how I'm going to get away with this?
No.
No plan to deceive?
No.
Maybe you wanted to get caught?
Yeah, I wanted to get out of that, definitely. I just said, oh God, I didn't even believe in God at the time. I was just a real mess. I'm very ashamed for that. It was so stupid. It was such a waste of life. And I think of the people that lost their lives over this, and it was about nothing. Just a...
You think your God has forgiven you?
Yes, I know he has. It was a long process to understand that, but I came to terms with that. I know that his word has promised that he's forgiven me.
Carl, don't do that.
Very sorry, but you see...
Who's that? Who's that?
Over behind the
Go get him.
I'm going to get into that. We'll be right back with David Berkowitz right after this.
Go get him.
It's one man and, could be anybody in the street, Everybody looks suspicious.
You walk in the street and everybody looks suspicious. You're so scared to say maybe it's him,
I wouldn't even let the car warm up anymore. I'd take right off.
Did you used to sit in a car?
Plenty of times. Me and her used to have our best conversations in a car. Not anymore. I won't stay in a car. I'm too worried.
How about you? How do you feel about it?
Well, now I'm, very frightened, especially that I have brown hair. I'm afraid to walk out at night. I used to, walk out and I wasn't afraid, but now that guy's loose.
We're back with David Berkowitz. When the movie came out, Son of Sam, which by the way did not do well, did that surprise you? That it opened and almost closed?
Oh, yes, that did. That did.
You were quoted, I want to clear this up, you were quoted in the New York Times by Mr. Hardin as saying that everything there is about Spike Lee and his family, I pray for Spike Lee and his family and his wife Tanya and his 2 children, Jackson and Satchel. God does not want me to be angry with anyone. Did you say that to Mr. Holden?
Only in part. Actually, there was a misquote. I think Mr. Hardin did a very fair job in the article. Mr. Hardin, right, did a very fair job. He, interviewed police officers. He interviewed a reporter. He interviewed some of the families, the victims, and of course he interviewed me too. And I shared some of my feelings about the movie. At that one part, I mentioned to him that I was following as much as I can about the making of that movie because I was really concerned over these things that were happening. It was like this big storm was coming in my direction, and I had the feeling that this was all going to whip up into a frenzy again with the news media, which it did in part for several weeks there in June and early July. The media kind of went on a frenzy, the newspapers, and there was things every day, and I had feared that was going to happen. So I had a lot of concern. Concerning Mr. Lee's family, I was misquoted totally. I don't monitor anything about his family. I pray for them. I have absolutely nothing against Mr. Lee, and I never said anything bad about him. I pray that God blesses him in every area of his life. I pray for many people.
Did you ever talk to Mr. Lee?
No.
Did you see the movie?
No, I did not want to see that. That's not a part of my life.
Did you read the reviews of the movie?
I saw some things, and pro and con, just mixed reviews, and I just thank God that it wasn't the big this big storm that I thought...
Well, I guess you're kind of glad that it came and went then. In that sense.
I'm glad that's... out of my life, at least for a while, you know. I'm glad, yeah, because you know, I've moved on from there. I'm not living in the past anymore. I have friends now.
Prison friends?
Friends on the outside. Like God has given me a whole new life. This tragedy that happened 22 years ago, that's not part of my life anymore.
You have friends, let me discuss that. You have friends on the outside?
Yes,
who come
sure.
to know you since this?
Yes, yes, a lot.
How did you make friends on the outside if you're confined to a prison?
Over the years, Larry, my Christian testimony has been shared in many places, and a number of Christians who heard it or read about it were very blessed, and they would get in touch with me, and a lot of friendships were formed.
Why did you leave Judaism?
Well, Larry, I haven't left Judaism at all. I feel that I'm totally Jewish. I was born a Jew. I feel I'm going to leave this world a Jew. I believe that Jesus is the Messiah of the Jews, and he loves the Jewish people. And I see myself now, before I had no interest in spiritual things, or the spiritual things that I were interested in were bad things back then, but today, I mean, I worship the God of Israel. I share from the Old Testament all the time, and I see it myself as being a Jew.
You did realize there were a lot of Jewish people very ashamed or embarrassed at your name, that Berkowitz, that there was a Jewish serial killer. Were you aware of that, that people took that almost personally?
Probably. I don't know. I'm not aware, but I'm sure that happened, yeah.
Because I guess the Jews have, you know, a certain moral code that they've set among themselves, that this is embarrassment. Do you feel sorry for that?
Yeah. The things that happened, there was a time when I was like no longer in control, and
Do you have to forgive yourself, by the way? Is that part of this process?
that was part of the process. I've learned that God has been showing me to forgive myself, because it's in the Bible that God, in the Old Testament and the New, that God forgives sins for those who come to him through faith in Christ, and I did that, and I feel that God has completely forgiven me, and he's taught me how to forgive myself. You know, he's allowed my mind to be healed. It's been a long process. I've been a believer now in Jesus for 12 years.
What do you say to those who say this is, I think, I'll give you a quote from the mother of your last victim, Stacy Moskowitz's mother, that was your last victim, said, "Show me one person that goes away from murder who doesn't turn to religion. It's sick," she said, that people do that. You realize, of course, that there would be doubters who say, yeah,
Oh,
it's
sure.
the old conversion.
Oh, sure, I'm sure there'll be doubters. Many of the men that are in here in this prison are in here for violent crimes, including murder, probably a greater majority of them, and really only a fraction of those have ever turned to Christ or found, as people say, religion. It's not what people think. I wish more would come to faith in God. I wish more would begin to
Was it a slow process for you?
Yes, it was very slow.
It was not some overnight message from above?
No, it was a slow process. Another inmate had reached out to me 12 years ago. He came up to me one day and began to share his faith. We became friends, and in the space of maybe a couple of months, he led me to a deeper faith in God. But I was under so much bondage. I mean, my life was just such a total wreck that it took a lot for God to reach me. Took a lot for God to reach me.
Are there days of doubt?
There were days of doubt.
None now?
No, I don't have any doubts now.
More in a minute with David Berkowitz from Sullivan Correctional Facility in South Fallsburg, New York. Don't go away.
I wrote David Berkowitz a letter. Yes, I did. And it was a letter from my heart. My daughter had just turned 20. I only had her 20 years. I wanted him to know what she was about, from the time she was born, as she was growing up, in her tender years, and as a preteen, and things like that. He took away her life.
This is CNN.
I am left with absolutely nothing. He left me nothing. He left me with memories. Thank God I have that. But he left me nothing. I lost a whole family with broken hearts. He is a bastard. I could kill him with my bare hands, and I am not a violent person. I could probably kill him and go for a dinner and go to sleep that night very peacefully.
We're back with David Berkowitz. Have you ever had a deal with relatives of the victims directly? Have you ever heard from them or spoken to them or had any contact at all?
I did receive, in 1993, I did receive a long letter from a mother of Stacy Moskowitz, and she wrote me a beautiful letter. She had seen a program on Inside Edition, which aired back then, and it really touched my heart. For many years, I had been praying for her, as well as for all the people that were hurt by this tragedy, and I did write to her a long letter, I think last year, and she received that well, but there's a lot of pain and hurt in their lives, and I wish I could sit down and talk with some of them.
What would you say?
I'm sorry, and I know that wouldn't be enough.
So what else would you say?
That I wish I could just undo it, all that happened.
There is a young man living, right? He was blinded, right, but not killed.
Partially blinded.
Yeah. Have you ever heard from him?
He did make a statement through another news program, and I did have a chance to respond to that. He had some misconceptions. I tried to say I was sorry, and
Does it bother you that some people don't believe it? In other words, that in a Christian, Judeo-Christian nation, which is based on forgiveness, they don't forgive.
It bothers me up to a point, sure, because I wish that others could experience the forgiveness that I know I've received from God. Even though I don't deserve it, I've never done anything to deserve it, I did what the Bible said. I asked God for forgiveness through Christ, and I know His Word says He's completely forgiven me. It took me a number of years to understand that and to accept that for myself.
You would have been able to forgive if it were your... daughter or wife?
I don't know. I pray every day for those that lost loved ones, and I pray that God would touch their lives and allow them to heal as much as possible.
Before we ask about what you do on the block, and I know later you want to do a prayer, and I think that's essential if people see you do that. When, after you would commit a crime, and you would go back to wherever you lived, Was there any remorse, any feeling of this was wrong?
I knew it was wrong, but at the time, you see, when somehow, to me, when a mind is captured, like by Satan, and the mind, you can't look at things and evaluate things in their right perspective.
So I'm asking a logical question that you can't answer logically, right?
That's right.
Because there's no logic dealing with it.
No, there isn't.
So what would you feel?
I was just empty. As I said, I was a blank. It was like a void, you know.
Let's say you're out to dinner, and someone would say, "What do you think of this killer loose?" Oh,
I don't remember what I felt back then. Like stuff like that. It was like I was detached from it. It was a terrible thing.
Now you know killers, don't you? There are killers in this facility.
Yeah.
People who've killed other people.
Yeah.
You talk to them.
Yeah.
Is that what you do a lot?
Sure.
And you try to convert them?
I try to share the gospel because I know that Christ could help a person. Christ could change a person's life, and that's what I strive to do every single day. As a minister, I mean, God had taken me, a murderer, and I feel that He's made me into a minister, just like He's done to the Apostle Paul.
So you counsel them. Have you had much success?
Yeah, sure, with a number of guys. There have been guys who have come to a deeper faith in God. There have been guys when I know they've been depressed and struggle. A lot of guys have guilt. A lot of guys, when they come to prison, it's really, they go through a process of reflection over time where they see that they've thrown away their lives. They've destroyed their relationship with their family, and that's when the regret begins to set in. Guys begin to seek an understanding of why they're in the mess that they're in, and here's the chance to share the gospel, because Jesus came, the Bible says Jesus came not for the righteous, but for sinners. And so here's guys that are sinners, like myself, and I say, hey, come on, I want to tell you that God loves you, that He's got hope for you, that He's got a plan for your life. You don't have to walk around angry all the time. You don't have to be suicidal. God can give you a reason to live, a reason to get up in the morning. And the guys, take me seriously when I share, and there are other inmates, too, who are Christians who do the same thing. It's not just me.
Who's that?
What's wrong, Bubba? Hey, what you doing? Whoa, whoa. Bubba, why are you barking?
The guard outside, showing us in, told us that this is a very tough bunch in here. Right? This is not people you meet every day.
Right.
Right? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with them? Those that, do they ever hurt you?
No.
None?
No. Some may not like my spiritual beliefs.
Do they suffer remorse?
Some of them do, absolutely, yeah. They're human like everyone else, and guys in here go through tremendous struggles inwardly. A lot of them, play the macho role and keep things inside, but I know a lot of guys cry on their pillow at night.
We'll be right back with David Berkowitz right after this. Don't go away.
I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't forgive him. I don't have a whole lot of hate and anger, possibly because I'm still alive. That certainly has a lot to do with it. What he's doing now, he's a born-again Christian, which I think is just great, although when you're in prison for the rest of your life, I don't think there's a whole lot more to do. I'm kind of ambivalent, to be honest with you.
I cried. I think that's enough with respect to any further questions concerning his present relationship.
May we ask him if he wants to see his son?
Yes. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Please.
We're back with David Berkowitz, touching some other bases. You were adopted, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Is your father still living?
My adopted father?
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Does he contact you?
Yes, we're in regular contact. He's a great dad.
Was he a great dad when you were a kid?
Yeah, absolutely. I had great parents.
What went wrong there, do you think?
Well, no, with my parents, nothing at all. They were the best. My mom, you know, she had passed away in 1967, my mother Pearl, and my dad, who's, thank God, is still alive today. They were the best parents that you can have. I was an only child, and they were a little on the poor side, you know. My dad had to work for 6 days a week, and they did a great job, you know, trying to.
So you're not into
the problem. Parents. No, the problem was with me. I was just I had a lot of emotional problems, which I know that broke their heart. I saw my parents, you know, break down and cry many times because they saw I had going through so many struggles, the depressions, and not talking to them.
You ever find out who your real parents were?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did meet my natural mother, and I did find out that my natural father had passed away in early 70s.
Did your natural mother have any problems that might give you a clue to any of the gene problem that might have occurred here?
No, nothing like that at all. I did have the chance to meet her. She was also Jewish, just like my natural father. And she turned out to be a very nice person. I met her when I was, I think, around 22 years old.
The problem, David, was with you, as in Shakespeare.
Yeah.
The problem is with ourselves, right? Yeah. Okay. Did you get, by the way, did they have to medicate you when you first came?
When I was first arrested, and I was in Kings County, the prison ward there.
In the hospital.
They had given me medication. After I came upstate to prison, and I was in Attica for a brief period of time, I was receiving medication. And then of course, I had some suicidal episodes, and I wound up going to a Marcy psychiatric center there for a little while.
Are you in good health now?
Yeah, absolutely good health, thank God.
Have you had any homosexual problems here, which is common in prison, is it not?
No, I haven't, no.
Is that surprising to you? Isn't that fairly common?
No, not that's just...
Is that overdone?
That's overdone stuff from the media, yeah. I mean, it happens here, but it happens everywhere, I'm sure, you know.
Not to a greater degree here with these men confined for great periods of time?
No.
All right, you counsel them. Do you get psychiatric counseling?
No, I don't, no. The Department of Corrections has given me a clean bill of health. As I said, in the general population, I have no problem. Mental or emotional problems. Whatever I had in the past, God has completely and totally healed me.
So what do you do for the people you counsel?
I give them a lot of encouragement.
They let you have private meetings with them all day, and how's it work? Give me your day.
Well, I get up in the morning pretty early. I like to pray. I like to read my Bible, make myself a cup of coffee. And
you do that in your cell?
Yeah, right. There's a little thing you can warm up water, and then I start my day. I go to breakfast and programs. I have to go. I leave my cell block and go down to the unit there, the intermediate care program. I go to that block and I begin to just be with those guys. Those are the guys that have some kind of emotional problems, coping difficulties,
and
I spend the day with
them.
There's a psychologist, a social worker, psychiatrist in the facility.
Is it a room you're in?
No, it's a regular cell block.
The cell block?
Cell block.
And you counsel them individually and in groups?
We used to have a group Bible study that I did, but the doctor that allowed me to run it, he had moved on to another assignment, so it kind of dissolved. But I encourage the guys to go to the chapel. Basically, I empathize with them. I want to be a good listener, and I'll share scriptures with them.
Do they ask you a lot about your past? Are they interested in son of Sam?
In here, most of the guys don't even talk about it. Guys don't ask me about that. Once in a while, a guy will be curious and ask a question, but they see I don't really want to. They see I don't want to talk about it, so they respect that. I thank God that, as I said, I'm like everyone else. Nobody fusses over me or
That's
or
the way
guys.
you want it.
Right, that's the way I want it.
Back with more of David Berkowitz after this. Berkowitz, so you showed me this card. You'll take a piece of scripture and read it to the men?
Right. See, like what I do is sometimes, in a way I reach out to the guys. I'll take a scripture verse from the Bible and I'll share it with the guy. I'll give it to him. I'll say, let's say, Joe, could you read that back to me? And we'll discuss that.
Let's say you do Isaiah. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusts in thee. Trust ye in the Lord forever, for in the Lord Jehovah is everlasting strength.
Right.
You have the prisoner read that to you.
Right.
And then you discuss what that means.
Right, then we'll talk about it. Like I'll say, well, Joe, what does it mean? Now, these guys have some mental problems, coping problems, problems with suicide attempts, depressions, and all that stuff. And I'll say, well, Joe, what does it mean to be in perfect peace? And how is God going to keep your mind stable? And we'll discuss that then. And then I'll say, well, what do you have to do? Does it come automatically? And he would respond, no, you have to trust God. I say, you see, there's the key. Now, we've got to work on learning how to trust God.
Do you feel by doing this a sense of accomplishment? Do you feel that you have a purpose on this planet?
Yes. God has shown me that he has given me a lot of purpose. Not just even here in the prison, but reaching out to youth.
Do you read things other than things biblical? You read books?
Sure.
Are you open to enlightenment in areas other than just the church?
Oh, sure. I read all kinds of books. I'm not much on novels, but I read autobiographies or...
What do you do at night? You don't watch television, so after dinner, what do you do?
Well, I have my time at the end of the workday. I could go to the chapel on the nights we have Bible studies or services, or I could stay back on other nights and write letters. I read and so forth.
You can make phone calls, right?
Yeah.
You have to call collect?
Mm-hmm, call collect.
Visitors come how frequently?
Well, they have visiting 7 days a week in the daytime.
You get a lot of visitors?
Not a lot. Once in a while, some people come up. I have a number of friends from the area that come by and visit.
Do you ever think that someday maybe I'll be paroled?
No, that's not...
That's forget it. Right?
No, God, I realize that because of what happens and the way the sentencing structure is, I'll be in prison for the rest of my natural life.
Did you always act alone?
Well... Not fully like that.
Were other people caught?
No.
They're still out there?
Most have passed on, and...
But they were involved in killing as well?
They
got away with it?
Well, no, they haven't got away with it, and they won't.
You think they're in hell?
Some have lost their lives, and...
You going to go to heaven?
I know I'm going to go to heaven when I die. I don't deserve it, but that's God's mercy, because that's the promise. I know that the blood of Jesus has washed away.
What kind of prayer do you want to do first?
I'd just like to pray in general, if it's okay.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes, sure.
Thank you so much, Larry, for this opportunity. And it says in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, the Lord is speaking. He says, if I shut up heaven that there be no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, It says, if my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land.
You feel sad as to how you will be remembered?
Yes, because I have regret over that.
The obituary will not have pluses in it, while you in your heart have done lots of good for lots of people since all of this.
Of course, I know because of my past, they will always remember the bad, but God has had mercy on me, and he'll have mercy on anyone who calls upon him.
You a good person, David?
I feel that God has made me a good person, a decent person. I was not always a good person, and there's a part of everyone that has a propensity to do bad. Even today, I know I can choose to do bad, but I don't want to.
You have bad thoughts?
Bad thoughts or sinful thoughts come to everyone, but the Bible says that God makes a way of escape. When if someone has a bad thought, they can call on the Lord, and the Lord will deliver them from that.
Are there days that's real hard, though?
There are days I struggle a lot. There are days I feel that sometimes everything is in vain, although it's not. And there are days when I feel a heavy spirit sometimes. I really feel an oppression fighting against me, but I press on because I know who has helped me in the past. It's the Lord, and he will always help me.
How old are you?
I'm 46.
And are you envious that I'll go out of here and you won't?
No. No.
David, I thank you very much for this hour.
David Berkowitz was eligible for parole in July, and at the hearing he stated he did not feel he deserved to be set free. Parole was, of course, denied. He's eligible again in June 2004. Thanks for watching. I'm Larry King. Good night.
Those parents have seen. That's, what is it that you would see in someone that would say to you, aha, the light bulb goes off on top of your head. That person's about to blow up the high school, or that person's about to, shoot people. What is it that you would recognize in another human being that would tip you off so that you could say, Jesus, I've got to help this person? That's the kind of thing I'm just curious about.
Okay. Well, I think that sometimes with, let's say teenagers or young adults, there's an obsession with death. There's a sense of loneliness, a sense of hopelessness, a sense of despair. I think that a person that's going through some kind of self-destructive or destructive thoughts kind of isolates themselves from others. And if a person's in a home with somebody, they see them becoming detached, remote, aloof, and there's maybe a time to just kind of reach out there. It's like, hey, what's going on with your life? I see you're struggling with something. What's on your mind? Let's share. Let's open up a little bit. A lot of times, people just need someone to really talk to, someone to spend time with them, a friend or a family member that's going to stick close with them. And when these things are not there, people it's so easy to get into their own frame of mind, and their world becomes real small, and they don't see the whole picture. They begin to just dwell on their own problems, their own anger, their own frustrations in life, and those things begin to percolate inside of a person, build up, and next thing you know, you have some kind of rage, anger, something like that. I see that people need to know that there's a God, that cares about them, that there's a God that has a place in life for them. I think in here, I know a lot of guys feel very maybe insignificant in the world or so forth, but I don't see myself that way anymore. I see myself as a person who has a purpose in life. I get up in the morning with a sense of purpose as a Christian. Well, I'm going to do the best I can to share with somebody today, to reach out to somebody today, to encourage them. You know, without those things, I just don't see how people can make it in this world. People try to lose themselves in all kinds of things. And when a person begins to become aloof, that's usually a sign that they're going through something.
Well, don't you think people withdraw too? I mean, there's different forms of withdrawal. I mean, you can withdraw into TV, into the internet, into drugs, into alcohol.
Yeah.
I mean, not in here. Nobody here's on drugs, alcohol, or on the internet, and they're certainly not watching too much TV. I don't think. It's just another one of the things of the case. You know how myths travel on and on about this brown-haired girls and all that. Was there anything to that?
No.
Okay.
And I just, you know, in terms of just reaching back to your lowest point, because you've come so lowest point, because you've come so far from so low. If you could try to talk a little bit of just comparing how you felt, if you could just reach into your heart and try to talk a little bit about feeling like you were in the depths of that moment where suicide was clearly something that would have been an option. Right now, it's the last thing that you would consider because you have a purpose, and I'd love you to...
That's. I think that's a very reasonable question too, Dave. That's one we tried earlier and didn't want to talk about. I just asked you if you could contrast or compare the David Berkowitz of 1977 to the David Berkowitz today. The difference.
The David Berkowitz of the past was a very guy living without any hope, and was a very troubled and tormented person. I believe that I was demon possessed, and the reason is because I allowed Satan to enter into me, and through rituals and incantations and other stupid things. I look back at that and say, man, that was garbage. I was an idiot to even do those things, but I didn't think it was going to end in destruction of others and even throwing my own life away. But today, thanks to Christ, I mean, today I'm living with hope. I know that God has forgiven me, even though others may never forgive me, and I have peace with God. I have peace with myself. I have joy. I have a future, and I believe that Christ is coming soon, and one day I'm going to be with Him. One day, you know, that's one of the tenets of the Christian faith, is that Christ will come again. And when that happens, in an instant of an eye, I'll be up in heaven with Him. And that's a hope that millions of Christians have. I live with that hope, and I face the future looking forward to being the best I can be as a person, and trying to touch as many lives as possible, trying to reach out to as many as possible in the time I have left, however long that may be.
Now, you said that you believe that God has forgiven you.
Yes.
But have you been able to forgive yourself, or is that something you'll never be able to do?
There was a long time of struggle where I couldn't forgive myself. And I went through a lot of pain during that time period. But one day a minister was preaching a sermon from the book of Micah, the prophet, and he talked about God taking all your sins and throwing them into the sea of forgetfulness, never to be remembered anymore. And as he was speaking, I felt like God's Spirit, I know it's a hard thing to understand, but I kind of sensed God's Spirit just kind of bloom in me in that moment where I felt God was reaching out to me and saying, David, your sins are forgiven. David, I've completely forgiven you. I love you. I want you to know that. And right then and there, it's like a light went off inside me. And I knew from that moment that my sins were completely forgiven. They were forgiven the moment I came to Christ, but it took me a number of years before I was finally able to realize the need to just forgive myself and to let go. And that's what I try to do today, is just let go of the past as much as possible. I hate talking about it. I hate dwelling on it. It's like another life that I don't even recognize anymore.
Now, you were talking about forgiveness in a spiritual sense.
Yes.
But I don't think that you're implying, or are you, that the rest of society should just say, okay, no harm, no foul.
No, not at all. I mean, I committed serious crimes. I deserve to be in prison for the rest of my life. I recognize that. I know that people will never forgive me. That's okay. That's normal, you know. But still, my life goes on.
Because you mentioned in your writing about Satan, these evil forces.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk about Satan, what are you actually referring to?
Well, you know, many people may not really understand that, but there was a time I was so confused and so troubled that I was seeking meaning and purpose. I was seeking something, I don't know, as my life began to spin out of control. I mean, I got involved in like Satanism, and I was reading the Satanic Bible, and it was such a dark and troubled time. I'm just even ashamed to talk about it. And I think, you know, years later, I look back in hindsight, and I say to myself, you know, I don't even understand how I got involved in this. I don't even understand what the lure of the attraction was. I don't even know what I was looking for. But, you know, at the time, it's just like one thing after another. Once you go down the wrong path, you know, you just end up anywhere. So, you know, here I am. 30 years later, we meet in a prison.
So how does it feel to be here for 30 years, knowing that this is going to be it?
You know, it's like, you know, the expression, take one day at a time. And it's never easy, you know, being incarcerated. I have no one to blame but myself. But I realize too, because of the seriousness of my offenses, that I'll probably never be released. But yet, you know, through my faith in Christ, I live with hope. I live with, you know, encouragement. There's so much to do. Dan, today I see myself almost like a missionary, you know, here. Like, in other words, missionaries go to, like, you know, foreign lands and share their faith with other people. I'm kind of like a missionary right here behind these prison walls. So I thank God for each day, and I'm managing.
Now, if you were able to get out, would you be a missionary? Would you go to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist?
No, I would definitely not be a psychologist or psychiatrist. No, but I would be just a man who, with love and passion in his heart, would do everything I possibly can to reach young people. If things were different, and let's say I were getting out tomorrow and can start a whole new life with my friends on the outside who were involved in churches and so forth, youth ministries, I would go to like different schools, youth detention centers, wherever, to talk with young people. You know, try to just give them some words of encouragement, words of advice to just keep them on a good track, you know.
Now, you have a very large following, because it was interesting, because I was reading your looking at the website, and I mean, you were interviewed by Larry King. You were interviewed. You have communications with a number of Christian organizations.
Really very small. It's not a large following. I have maybe 15 or 20, good, solid friends, and some who live in this area I could see on a regular basis, and others that are far away we only correspond by mail. But I'd say I have about 15 or 20 close friends, and that's about it, But other people can view the site and get whatever they can from that,
When I wrote you a couple of months ago, and you mentioned that there were missionaries that came who were visiting here, or they were going out to Europe.
A friend from Russia, actually. Yeah, he's with an organization called Russian Christian Radio, and actually he's from the United States, but he and his wife and family they are living in Moscow right now, where they run the ministry from there. So it's interesting how people from all walks of life. I'm not Russian descent, but I have friends in Africa, people I write to, Russia, different places, and they're all devout Christians, and we have a lot in common.
Your writing, because you happen to be a very good writer.
Okay, well, thank you.
I told you that once before. I've told you that on several occasions.
Okay, well, thank you.
And so, how did your book, Son of Hope, how did that come about?
Well, actually, certain friends over time encouraged me to keep a spiritual journal. And I wasn't too keen on that one way or the other. I said, well, that's an idea. Well, they said they liked the way I write my letters and so forth, and they thought it would be a good idea if I were to write, my day-to-day experiences as a Christian living behind prison walls, if I would just kind of keep a journal.